I can very much tell when my clients don't need a journal prompt. They need to physiologically switch states first. It's like when your kid is having a tantrum. Like, I learned this as a parent. Like, you can't actually parent your kid, like reason with them when they're having a tantrum.
No.
They can't listen. They're in their amygdala. They're in their fight or flight state. The first thing that you have to do is help them regulate. So you have to co-regulate with them. I give my daughter a hug. I get down on her level on the floor. I give her a hug. I say, let's breathe together. And we breathe together until she calms down. I can't tell her, like, reason with her until she's finally calmed down. And we have to do the same thing with ourselves.
I'm imagining all those people that get upset in stores, like the Karens out there. Just all go give them a big hug and it's going to be okay. And then you can reason with them. But when they're all riled up, no.
I know. Instead you see parents and they don't know. They just don't. They're really just embarrassed, and then they're operating in their amygdala. So then they're screaming at their kid because they're embarrassed, and they're like, knock it off, or that's what you get, or blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that doesn't help. It's completely not helpful. They're still unregulated. They can't listen to you.
And then they're stressing out everybody around them. So it's just not good. They're all in their sympathetic nervous system. They can't rest and digest at that point.
We all are so often. Yeah, that's the pandemic. We are all in fight or flight, just way too much.
Yes. So let's apply this to food, because a lot of people that follow me and you, this is it. And by the way, I love that you're a coach that goes here, because so many coaches, and we need them, teach the knowledge about the diet, teach the knowledge about some of the physiology, the insulin response, blood sugar response, inflammation, all that kind of thing. But if you don't get to the heart of your belief about why you think you need that chocolate covered donut with the sprinkles on top, then you're never going to change your behavior. And so how do you broach that subject? Do you start with the mind when you start coaching clients and then work your way as to how it applies to food at that point? Or do you kind of mix it both simultaneous? How do you teach that?
Yeah, that's so good. And thank you for pointing that out. And I just have so much love and respect for all of my colleagues in the space who have so much more training in, like, they're trained nutritionists, dietitians, holistic practitioners, all of those things. I knew that I wanted to become a weight loss coach. And I knew that I wanted to get way more training as a life coach than actually in nutrition training, because I firmly believe that it's not that we don't know what to do. It's not a lack of information. It's a lack of motivation. You can Google everything for free. And I'm not diminishing what the educators are doing. I think it's so valuable to work with somebody to get all of the information that you need in one place and to get the accountability and all of those things. That's so valuable because it can be overwhelming, right? There's so many different opinions on this is the right way to keto and this is the wrong way to keto and all of that. But I knew that the niche that I really wanted to go for was the mindset work. Because for myself, that was my experience. And I think a lot of times we start to heal in the way that we wish we could have received healing, right? And so for me, it wasn't that I didn't know what to do. Some of it was. When I first discovered low carb as opposed to counting calories, I was like, what the heck? Why didn't anybody ever tell me about this, right? So we do need the right information. We need the right strategies. But we also really need to, again, dig deeper below the surface. Like, at a certain point, you do know all the information you need to know. And you're sitting there thinking, I know everything I'm supposed to do. Why am I just not doing it? And that's where we need to uncover the deeper stuff. So as a trained life coach, I have learned basically that fundamentally everybody is creative, resourceful, and whole. I hold all of my clients in the highest regard. The wisdom that they need is already inside of them. I'm just helping to draw it out. And it's absolutely incredible what happens when somebody just starts talking in a safe space and I'm reflecting back to them what they're saying. They're saying the answers right out loud. They're telling me all of the stuff that they were conditioned as a little kid, and it's still stuck with them, right? They're telling me their life story. Of course, I ask about past history. How long have you struggled with your weight? What types of messages did you receive about food, weight, and body image? And you realize it's still holding you back. I was just talking with a client the other day, and she was sharing basically about how, the first time she went on a diet, she was 9 years old. And I asked her, what's the first time that you felt shame about your body size or food or weight or body image? She was like 7, maybe younger. And she was compared to Aunt Sally. I'm going to change the name, but she was compared to Aunt Sally. And Aunt Sally was like easily over 100 pounds overweight. And nobody really respected Aunt Sally. Everybody thought that Aunt Sally was kind of, a failure, kind of really undisciplined. She wasn't held in high regard. But here is this little 7-year-old girl. Every time she goes to grab a second helping of food, they'll say, oh, she's just like Aunt Sally. Or, they come around, family members pinch your little cheeks. You look just like Aunt Sally. And so what do you receive about yourself when you're a child? This is so similar to what I went through, but there's something wrong with me. No matter what, I'm going to end up like Aunt Sally. It's kind of like my destiny. And so she takes that on. And in this area of her life, now she's 60 years old, still feeling like I'm a failure. No matter what I do, it's hopeless, it's pointless, all of these things. And these beliefs are so set in our subconscious. And
Yes.
unless we draw them out and start to question it, looking at it first through the lens of self-compassion, it can't be angry at yourself. It can't be judgmental towards yourself. A lot of us have self-awareness. We know where it came from, but we lack the self-compassion because we're like, and I need to get it together. And why can't I overcome this? So we're not actually seeing it through the lens of self-compassion first.
And this explains, Jess, why even after people have a weight loss success, they experience body dysmorphia. They
Yes.
see themselves as that fat ant that
Mm-hmm.
everybody thought they were. And
Yeah.
even though physically in a mirror, you're looking back at that image, it's not the same. And I can tell you this personally myself, when I lost 180 pounds, I still felt fat in that
Yeah.
moment. And it was the
Yeah.
weirdest thing because it was the lowest I'd ever been in my adult life in weight. And yet I still
Yeah.
believed in my
Yeah.
head that I was that bigger person. And that's a big issue. And I'm sure you deal with that in the post weight loss for a lot of your clients too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Body dysmorphia is something that I struggled with as well. I was a fat kid, and basically I reached a normal weight by the time I hit puberty through very disordered means, but I always saw myself as overweight the entire rest of my life. And still, until, I kind of discovered keto and started then having the mental energy or capacity to start to do some of this inner healing work. But yeah, my whole life I struggled with body dysmorphia. It's quite a thing that a lot of people are struggling with. And, we tend to think like, you're talking about how does this relate with food, like these limiting beliefs. There's so many of them. Another one that I hear all the time is, why can't I just eat normal and be skinny like everybody else?
Yeah.
And so here we are, just like valuing body size above all else. But what we don't realize is even these people that are in a smaller body than you may not be healthy, may not be metabolically healthy, may not be even feeling good whatsoever. Their thoughts are consumed by food. Like you don't actually know what's going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, and I saw a reel the other day that I thought was beautiful. It was all these women, and they were just flashing them on the screen, and they were basically wearing just like a bikini or whatever, and all of them were different sizes. And
Yeah.
then at the very end, it said, "Would you believe they're all the same weight?" And so it kind
Mm,
of hammered home of just because you view yourself as different than someone else doesn't mean that you're different in a bad way. We're all
yeah.
meant to be different and embrace the good parts about what you are. This is what upsets me as just someone online trying to encourage and inspire people is why put yourself down about one area that you supposedly have failed in, weight generally being the thing that people get upset about, but you forget about inflammation lowering and blood sugar stabilizing and mood stabilizing and you feel good in your own skin, you got lots
Yeah.
of energy, all the good things that happen. Why do we throw all of that out the window? That's a belief that those things don't matter and only the weight matters. How
Mm.
do you how do you change that?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, with any belief that's holding us back, how do you change a belief that's holding you back? And I think it's through asking yourself a better set of questions. One of the things that attracted me the most to life coaching was this idea of we are all just one powerful question away from a transformation. It's literally just one mindset shift can change the rest of the course of your life. We've all had maybe we've all had it happen in one way, shape, or form. But yeah, one day you're listening to a sermon or you're listening to a podcast and something just clicks and you start thinking about it differently. What a beautiful gift in life that we have the ability to change our minds, that we truly can transform. And for those from a Christian faith, we believe like we're transformed by the renewing of our mind. And so it really does start with your mind. And your entire reality can change just by asking yourself a different question, just by looking at something in a totally different way than what you've been accustomed to looking at it before. And so I think asking yourself better questions. And before we wrap up today, I am going to share 4 questions with your audience that you can ask to go through any belief. But generally, I find, and this is helpful with yourself, but also with other people, because your brain is going to give you an answer to the question that you ask. So if you ask the question, why does this have to be so hard? Your brain is going to give you a list of reasons. If you ask your brain the question, what's wrong with me? Your brain's going to give you a list of answers to that question. But if you say, how can I overcome this? Or who does this sound like? Maybe it's not mine. Like you can start to loosen the grip that this has on you just by asking yourself a better set of questions. And this is helpful in your interactions with other people too. Don't ask why questions. It immediately puts people on defense. I've learned as a life coach, like, don't ever say why, like, why do you say that? Or, why do you feel that way or whatever? Instantly people get defensive. It's much better to ask what questions or how questions.
And part of your beliefs is you mull them over in your head over and over and over and over again. Then you get reinforcement from friends who you have chosen because very likely they have that same belief that you have. So you get reinforcement externally. This is hard. Like that is an uphill battle trying to shift that belief that's so firmly ingrained. And I've got one of those brains that when I think of things, I think and I think over and over and over again. I can remember things from years ago and it just reverberates as if it's happening right now. And so that's difficult for people. And then they get the reinforcement from friends and outside forces that say, yeah, that belief is right. And like you said, it's along religious lines, political lines, diet line. It goes across the board in all of life.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that is how you establish a belief, is through rehearsal. Repetition is how you ingrain something into your brain, is through repetition. And so a lot of us, the repetition that has happened surrounding these beliefs wasn't chosen by us. Again, it was when we were a child and this message was kind of drilled into our heads, either explicitly or implicitly. And then what happens is once you form that belief, this is very interesting, and it's not woo-woo, it's real. This is about neuroplasticity and neuroscience. There's actually a region of the brain that we can see on brain scans and detect it, and it is called the reticular activating system. And the reticular activating system is essentially your brain's filter. So we have so much stimuli coming in through our five senses all the time, we can't possibly pay attention to all of it and process all of it. It wouldn't serve us from a survival mechanism. So, and this is very illustrated by like the concept of tunnel vision. So as soon as you start to feel threatened, even more information gets deleted out of your attention span. So like, if there's like, somebody that looks like they're going to attack you in front of you down the street, you're not going to hear the birds tweeting in the background or whatever. Like literally, like you just get tunnel vision on that threat. And so this is a great example of how the reticular activating system is serving to keep you safe. So it's blocking out information that it deems to be irrelevant, and it's placing front and center evidence that it thinks is relevant to you. Your brain is saying, pay attention to this. This is important. And so a way that we can actually change the brain is through priming our reticular activating system.
Yes.
So we can tell our brain what to pay attention to. And a really simple example is when we are maybe shopping for a new car. So let's just say that you want to buy a red sedan, and you're looking up prices and you're comparing and all these things. And now you're driving down the street and all of a sudden you see red sedans everywhere. Like, oh my gosh, I never realized how many red sedans, everybody drives a red sedan. No, it's not that there are more red sedans than there used to be. It's that your brain is now showing them to you through your brain's filter because you've primed your brain to say, this is relevant. Pay attention to this now. So when people get so deeply entrenched in their beliefs, it's because your reticular activating system is always everywhere showing you examples that reinforce that belief. And it's literally deleting evidence that that belief could be wrong. It's blocking it out for you as a survival mechanism. So you actually have to have, first of all, a sense of safety, and then you need to prime your brain. So you need to like challenge yourself to look at different perspectives and different opinions. If it's something that you want to do, the first step is to just take a little bit of curiosity. And then once you prime your brain, if you're saying something like, oh, my life sucks, everything is so hard, then that's the lens that you're going to see everything in your day. But if you start your day with gratitude, like, oh, everything is abundant, I have blessings to me coming all the time, by the end of the day, you're going to have some examples of that being true. So it really is about priming your brain.